Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. For those of you who are new, my name is Jane. Thank you all so much for being here. So I thought I would do like a little extra special video for Venus retrograde where she just officially stationed just a couple of days ago over this past weekend. So to offer a little extra guidance for you, in addition to the monthlies that I just posted last week, I wanted to kind of do this nice little pick a card as well. So for those of you who are interested in booking a relationship focused session, you are more than welcome to do that. I have a special running right now on those specifically for Venus retrograde. So all the information on that will be down in the description box in the comment thread down below. It will be a tarot/astrology combination reading. To kind of help give you a more full perspective on everything from an astrological viewpoint and a more intuitive tarot viewpoint as well. Okay, so how these work, right? As you may or may not know, I'm not sure. We have 3 piles, so you can just pick a pile, and the timestamps will be in the description box and the comment thread down below, so you can quickly navigate to your pile. So we have 3 different decks and 3 different stones. First pile, we're using a Smokey quartz. Pile 2, we're using a rose quartz, and pile 3, we're using selenite. So this is a great time to pause the video, allow yourself to be drawn to one of the piles or multiple. If you feel like you want to watch multiple, that's fine too. And then check the timestamp, go ahead and click on it, and I will see you in that section of the video. All right, pile number 1, you selected the Smokey quartz. Let's go ahead and take a look with your deck. What is it that you need to know? Okay, well, clearly that one wanted to come out. 10 of Cups, beautiful. What else does pile 1 need to know for this Venus retrograde period? Lovers, the 5 of Swords. Okay. Now, the Lovers, I mean, we are doing a love reading, okay? But in its most fundamental sense, usually the Lovers signifies choice and having to make big choices and having to kind of come into unification within yourself, head and heart, coming into a state of alignment so that you can proceed smoothly, okay? Now, there is also an element of union that can come through here. Now, it could be just that there's a significant desire for union that really starts to surface. There could be actual union. So if you're totally single right now, there's a strong potential that you could meet somebody. If you are already in a relationship, it's also highly likely that the two of you could be operating in a more symbiotic relationship where, you know, your partner is exhibiting their strengths, you are exhibiting your strengths, and together those things complement one another, and you can proceed and progress toward your goals without conflict, okay? And with the 10 of Cups, it does feel like you have a sense of hope and optimism toward your relationships or your love life in general. And there are, you know, things that you are seeking and looking for and that you're reaching upwards for. If you're in a relationship, chances are the two of you do want the same things. So it's not like you're alone in this vision. If you are single and you don't really have anyone to bounce any of that off of yet, the likelihood of attracting someone who does want those same things is actually quite high right now. Now, some astrologers may advise against meeting people during a Venus retrograde. Me personally, I don't think it's that big of an issue. I usually recommend or caution against meeting people during a Mars retrograde, simply because Mars retrograde, which we just came out of, by the way, struggles with longevity. But a Venus retrograde is more about reevaluation, especially because this particular Venus retrograde coincides with a Mercury retrograde as well. They're happening at the exact same time, in the same sign, within the same degrees. So, you know, it's more about reevaluation and kind of going back to the drawing board for some of you and starting from scratch. So it's not necessarily like if you were to meet someone, it's not like you you couldn't have something wonderful during this period. I think it's highly likely that you could. Now, the Five of Swords kind of smashed in the middle here does speak to our minds. And there may be a situation in your life that is recurring that I feel strongly that you're trying to get away from as much as possible. The thing with the Five of Swords is it can be quite daunting, especially if it does involve other people, where it's like, ugh, here we go again. Here's that same argument again. Here's that same conversation again. And no matter how differently you present your side or how justified you are in the way you feel, there's really never any winners here. And this conflicts with what's going on with the Ten of Cups and the Lovers, because I think in many ways you want to make the absolute best possible decisions, and yet there is a tendency to want to revert back or go back to something that is just not productive in the slightest. And other people may be kind of trying to drag you back as well. Now, I don't think this is the most toxic thing in the world. Maybe for some of you, it's more unhealthy than it is for others. It's like, it seems to me like your intentions are the best, but yet certain circumstances are kind of dragging. It's kind of like an undertow, kind of pulling you back into something that you never really wanted to be a part of in the first place. You're just over here trying to get to where you're going. You and your partner, or you with a new partner, you're focused on happiness, you're focused on connection, you're focused on communication, and again, healthy unions. And yet there does seem to be people who insist on kind of the opposite of those things. This may be an indicator to you, and this is one thing that Venus retrograde is really good for, to reevaluate certain relationships in your life, to understand that maybe there is something anchoring you down and preventing you from really flourishing in your relationships, or something flourishing toward your goals. I mean, this could be anything. It could be something completely non-related to relationships, and yet still it drags you in. Still, it's like an energy vampire, and it's very hard to maybe come to the conclusion that you have to walk away. But I think it's time for you to really walk away from something that absolutely does not serve you, because how are you ever going to have space in your heart? How are you ever going to be totally aligned with that head-heart alignment that we see with the Lovers if this is continuing to go on? You have to be careful of that energy of trying to force hope with other people that insist on not changing, or that insist on not evolving. Okay, or it's like they just really don't want to see. And at a certain point, you have to say, well, if they're just never going to change, or they're never going to wake up, or they're never going to see from my perspective, and they're not willing to see from my perspective, then what am I really doing here? Because this is what's getting in the way of my joy. Okay. Now, I look here at the King of Swords, Queen of Cups combo. I actually don't mind this pairing at all. It seems kind of incompatible, but I find actually they're so high contrasting. Okay, we have an extremely feminine Queen of Cups and an extremely masculine King of Swords. And there's really no in between. Like, for example, if this was a Queen of Wands, this would be someone who has a nice balance of masculine with the wand or the fire element, with the feminine with the queen. So it's a nice internal balance there. Same thing if this was like a King of Coins or something like that, nice masculine and feminine. But we have really strong feminine and really strong masculine. And to me, this feels like a union that has the potential to be extremely resistant to adversarial forces. Okay. If you're in a current relationship, to me, this feels like power couple, strength, true union. We have a true protector type of spirit and a true kind of nurturing type of spirit. Again, it's high contrast. But there does seem to be something that you are going to need to protect against with the Five of Swords. And so if you are in an existing relationship, this is going to be a place, your relationship is going to be a place to lean into. It's going to be a place where there is safety, where there is security, where there is privacy as well. And the two of you can operate as a unit, right? A unified unit to proceed. Because again, the goal of the Ten of Cups, it's there, and I think you both share it. Now, if you're single, I am kind of feeling like you're leaning in a little bit more one toward the other. You're either going to be very much the Queen of Cups or very much the King of Swords. And the type of person that you are likely to attract during this time. Now, it depends on how, I'm not guaranteeing that you're definitely going to meet the love of your life here, okay? But what I am saying is that there is a likelihood, depending on your availability, there is a likelihood that you will meet someone that, again, is high contrast, but also highly complementary as well. Chances are these two share the same values, they share the same vision, they both really want the same things, but they fulfill different roles within that process, okay? So your availability matters. If you are completely shut off, you're not going to meet anybody during this time, okay? Just simply not going to happen. But if you are open and you are out there and you are trying and you have opened the channels, and you are willing to keep your mind open about different kinds of people, chances are there's going to be someone that will surprise you, okay? But this does seem like it's wedged in. Now, for those of you who are single, this could also, there could be an element of fear a little bit because of past problems that you've had in relationships, right? I mean, that's fair. It's fair if you've had toxic relationships in the past or unhealthy or abusive or whatever, it's fair to have that fear going forward. But my concern is that you're projecting all over people that don't deserve it. Okay, so we want to be careful of our own projections, and we want to be careful that we expect a replay, because it doesn't have to be a replay. And it's not just Venus retrograde, it's not just Mercury, but don't forget that we have Pluto now officially in Aquarius, which really changes the game for all of us. All right, the Pluto in Aquarius thing, it's our opportunity to go about doing things in a completely radically different way, without having to conserve or preserve anything from the past. All right, and the more we try to preserve the past, the more we realize how much it actually gets in the way. And many people are going to have to go through a process of cutting things out during this time. Cutting things out for the sake of bringing things in. Because it's clear to me that there is something great and wonderful that wants to come in, but this kind of old, repeated stuff, and again, it may have to do with the relationship world in your life, or it may not, but it seems to be wedged in here and completely kind of shifting the story depending on how you respond to this. Some people are going to look at those tendencies and those relationships that keep them in this toxic loop, and they're going to say, I am done with this. I absolutely cannot see this ever changing. I cannot see this ever getting better. I cannot see this ever being what it needs to be. And they're going to move on because there's no value on either side. There's no winners here, okay? In fact, it's both losers. Everyone's a loser in that type of a situation, okay? And then there are the people that are going to continually hope that things are going to improve, knowing that it won't. Okay, so it really depends on where you are on the spectrum. But if you continue to invest in the Five of Swords, all you will get is more Five of Swords, and all of this other wonderful stuff that is around you kind of becomes moot. It becomes irrelevant. It becomes inconsequential. It doesn't matter because it can't come in while this is present anyway. Okay? So intuitively, I think you know this. Intuitively, in your heart of hearts, I think you know that there's something magical available to you, but you have to get that sour thing, whatever it may be, out of the picture so that you can enjoy the sweetness of the Ten of Cups and this kind of union thing that's going on here. But this is a time when Venus retrogrades. It is a powerful time of adjustment. And because she's doing so in Aries, which is ruled by Mars, it's pretty aggressive. This adjustment is pretty powerful and kind of warrior-like. And so it's sort of, I mean, it's pretty clear that in order to get from point A to point B, it's a linear path. And there are very specific steps that we must take in order to go that path. And if we decide not to, well, then we won't, clearly and obviously we just won't ever get there. So it's not confusing. And that's kind of what I like about the sky right now is I don't think there is a lot of confusion. I don't think there's a lot of like, what do I want to say? There's not a lot of like mystery or anything. It's like, okay, well, if I want to go there, I know exactly what to do. And that's it. Okay? So hopefully you can find a way to eliminate that Five of Swords or step away from it or whatever and really just kind of open your heart to the possibilities, because right now, especially while we're finishing out Pisces season, being open to possibilities is the absolute best thing we can do. Okay? All right. Thank you so much, Pile 1. I hope you have an amazing Venus retrograde, and I will talk to you soon. All right, pile number 2, you selected the rose quartz. So let's go ahead and give this deck a shuffle and see what comes through. So what is it that pile 2 needs to know for this Venus retrograde? Okay. Feels like this next month and a half or so is going to be really geared toward, a massive release. Now, keep in mind that this Venus retrograde, there's also a Mercury retrograde going on and an eclipse. Okay, it's eclipse season. So it's a little bit more powerful than normal, I would say. It's a little bit more potent. The energies are thicker. They are stronger. And I don't care if you are single or in an established relationship, this Nine of Swords seems to be kind of getting worked up a little bit. The thing with the Nine of Swords, we have to be really careful about what is real and what is not real. And what it is that maybe we're just projecting versus what the reality is suggesting. Because there does seem to be a lot of projection or a lot of kind of building things up in your mind that may not necessarily be reflective of what's actually going on. So I think staying grounded is especially important for pile number 2. There does seem to be a big element of release that's going on here. And I think this release is kind of like a through the eye of the needle kind of thing, kind of getting squeezed out. It's like you really have to kind of work hard to get this emotional stuff out of your heart and out of your body. And you have to be consciously releasing this so that you can really move on. And if there are issues in an existing relationship, chances are this Venus retrograde will really accentuate not just the issue at hand, but a lot of the things that have built up. So things that have been below the surface that have been kind of percolating and kind of brewing, and now all of a sudden they're coming to light. This is really hard to sustain, okay? The Nine of Swords is usually a situation when we're on the brink of something, okay? We're on the brink of major change, major evolution. We're on the brink of saying something. Usually there's a lot of repression that happens here as well. Like, again, especially if we're in an existing relationship and things have been building up below the surface. I mean, this is kind of like a teapot that's just about to start to whistle, okay? I feel like you're like this close to starting to whistle, and this Venus retrograde is going to bring that out. But it's a good thing that this happens, because then it will no longer be contained in the body, and it will no longer be contained in that world of privacy and secrecy and all of that, and you can finally find freedom from that. I mean, if you're totally single and you don't have an existing relationship, there may be something from the past that I don't know, maybe you thought you released it, you thought you were over it, you thought it was totally gone, and now here it is showing up in your life in some way, shape, or form. Like, let's say there was a bad relationship like 5 years ago. It ended, you've had all this time, you've been single, whatever, and now you're starting to date again or thinking about dating. And now all of a sudden you're realizing that you're projecting a lot of fear onto the world at large because of something that happened. And immediately it's creating a lot of resistance and restraint in the dating world, and even in the emotional availability world, where you're maybe not as emotionally available as you thought, or maybe you're not as open-minded as you thought, or you're not as whatever as you thought you were. And that's because of what happened. And see, this Venus retrograde, because it coincides with Mercury. Now remember, Mercury is retrograding also in Aries at around the same degree. Venus is almost at 11. It's like 10 degrees, 49 minutes or something. I can't remember exactly the minutes, but it's like almost the 11th degree. And Mercury is at almost the 10th degree. So it's just really, really close to one another when they station and start retrograding. And I think Mercury is kind of adding to that past energy a little bit. It's adding to the past coming out. And it's even adding to this element of confusion as well. Because I think maybe pile two, you're thinking, well, what do I do with this? Like, okay, so it's great to know that maybe there's stuff percolating. Maybe it's great to know that I'm projecting a little bit out, but what do I do about it? And I think you are kind of lost for a solution here, but I don't know that that's really the primary purpose of all of this. It's not really about finding a solution. It's not about fixing anything or going inside of your... See, that's the thing with this big moon in Virgo, is there is going to be that tendency... Oops, accidentally kicked my cat. There is going to be a tendency to want to fix everything. But I don't know that that's really the goal. I mean, the tendency will be there, and I guess that's okay, but that fixing energy should go towards things that are quote-unquote fixable. Like if there's a problem at work and you miscommunicated accidentally or accidentally ordered something that you shouldn't, you can fix that problem. But like with you and your past love life and the way you're relating to people right now or whatever's going on, it's not an issue with you that has to be fixed. It's just more of an awareness of things. And I think you're just going to have to kind of sit in this kind of cloudiness for a minute, especially if you are like trying to proceed in an existing relationship or you are trying to open yourself up to a new one. I kind of think that you're in a state of discomfort right now, and that is okay, because the state of discomfort is you just sort of sitting with yourself and saying, this is me, these are my tendencies, this is who I am. Now, when I say this is who I am, it's not a hard and fast identity. It's not like you're locking into that. It's just that you're not trying to berate yourself or criticize yourself or be harsh or brutal with yourself. Okay, because I think there is that tendency to just be like, why can't I just be better, and why can't I just and that's not really going to help anyone, single or in a relationship. It's just not going to help. And so I look at the Two of Wands, and what I see is a lot of hope and a lot of future focus. Okay, so this is not like you're not going to fix anything with the past. You're not even going to fix anything with the present by looking toward the past or anything. The past does not really have a place right now. I mean, with the astrology, especially with this Mars Pluto opposition that's been going on for the past several months, and still will continue as Mars continues on through Cancer. He's going to get closer and closer into this opposition with Pluto for the third time. So there's just a lot of massive endings and cutting things off and elimination that happens there with that particular opposition, plus eclipses and plus the retros, plus all this other stuff. So the solutions are not found in the past. The only thing that we can do is hope and dream and focus on the future. And I think this is really Law of Attraction 101 type of stuff, where we take that notion of creation very seriously and start working on, I don't want to say convincing ourselves, although it's kind of what I really want to say, but working on understanding that we are deserving of good things regardless of whatever happened before, and regardless of our confusion, and regardless of our tendency to want to cling to something or whatever. But I think this is a moment of massive change for pile number 2. As I see with the Eight of Cups, it's clear that you are ready to really move on, probably from something really hard. And especially if you have been going through a difficult phase within a relationship, this is not just you, this is the two of you together saying it's time for us to both move on. It's time for us to let that just be. And I don't know that you have to resolve everything. I know it's not the best advice because sometimes it comes up later on, but maybe we need to do that right now. I'm not seeing tons of resolution coming through, but I also think that's a relief. It's like it's not coming up so you can fix it or close it out so much as it is coming up so you can move on. That's more of what I'm seeing. I think for those of you who are single, there is a huge heart chakra opening going on. And a lot of the restriction that you had in the past because of the past, you start to realize that is not good for me. That is not going to get me where I want to go. It's not going to get me the type of love that I want to attract. And for those of you who are already in established relationships, these past issues are also not going to repair the bond. They're not going to strengthen the bond. They're not going to bring the future to fruition. They're just not going to do that. So we drift. We start to drift away. And I think there is a natural release that happens. So again, it's not for resolution or fixing, but it doesn't mean that you're going to kind of carry on all this karma, because I don't think you are. I don't think you're going to carry this whole load of baggage and everything. That's not what this is about. That's not what this astrology is about. I don't even think I'm not trying to get all woo-woo on you on that. I hate to say it, I'm a kind of a woo-woo type of person, but I don't want to get too far into it. But I don't even think this is next life type of stuff. This is not something that you are meant to carry into another life. It's not like a to be continued story. Okay, this is forever and always on an infinite universal scale, a drifting. And maybe there is a lot of mercy and forgiveness and a lot of compassion that you are offering, not only to yourself, but to other people as well. And I think you want a blank slate. I think you're ready for that. You're a blank slate, but with wisdom, right? It's like going back to high school, doing it all over again, knowing what you know now. I think that's kind of where you're at. You're like, I'm ready to go through a new relationship. I'm ready to go through the next chapter. I'm smarter. I'm better. I have learned a lot. And I can take all of that, but I do want to start fresh. And I think that's really what this Eight of Cups is about, is that desire to start fresh. So there is a massive reboot, reset going on with this Venus retrograde. I say massive. To you, I think it's going to be more subtle because right now you're probably here in the beginning stages feeling more of the intensity, feeling the stress, strain, anxiety, whatever. But come the end of this, probably by May 16th, you're going to look back on March. Right now, you're going to look back on this time frame right now and you're going to say, I'm like a totally different person already. I'm already a completely different person. I've already let that go. I've already forgiven. I've already released it. I've definitely moved on, and things could look vastly different between now and the 16th of May, when Venus officially comes out of her post-shadow phase. Okay? So the Two of Wands, though, is the main card, I think, of hope. So it's going to be important for pile number 2 to really think about, I think doing traditional manifestation things is good advice. Journaling especially, words of affirmation, if you don't experience too much resistance, those things can definitely work. But to me, I don't know why journaling is coming through real hot and heavy with me. Or like a vision board, okay, like actual photographs. Like for me, I always like to print off, like I'll go to Walgreens and I'll print off a bunch of photos just because I like to have the visual. But you can journal, you can write all those things down, just so long as I think you get it down on paper about what you want your love life to look like. What do you want your relationships to look like? Even if you are currently in one, and maybe it's not going so great, or maybe there's a problem that the two of you are struggling to resolve, I think the question under the Two of Wands is, well, who do I need to be? Who do I want to become? Because chances are, if you're here and you're not happy in your relationship, there's something you're not happy with within yourself. Like you're not being yourself authentically, truly, fully. And if you feel like you can't be yourself in this relationship, maybe some of you are going to have to really reconsider what's going on there. But if you have the freedom to be yourself and kind of click back into what makes you happy, there can be a lot of repair that is done simply by you now taking your power back, because maybe part of the reason here is you've given your relationship too much power. And if you're single, maybe you've given too much power to the idea that you're single. So I feel like there's a power shift, and you take it back and you begin to thrive on your own fruition. Okay? Kind of a big reading, powerful, but still beautiful nonetheless. And I think there's a lot of hope here in your creation power and your manifestation power. So don't sleep on the traditional manifestation methods. Okay? All right, pile number 2. Thank you so much. I wish you absolutely nothing but the best over the next couple of months. Take care. All right, pile number 3. You guys selected the Selenite. So let's go ahead and take a look and see what this deck has to say. Let's go ahead and give this a good shuffle. So what is it that pile number 3 needs to know for the Venus retrograde? Queen of Wands, 9 of Wands, the Moon, the 10 of Cups, 9 of Swords. Okay. So the Queen of Wands is really tenacious, and she tends to plow her way forward. I'm not saying she doesn't consider consequences, because she absolutely does. I'm not saying you're being sloppy with anything at all, but she does tend to just like go for it and take the risk and push, and she pushes other people. And I think she has a demanding quality as well. And so if there are conflicts, if there are issues that arise, Queen of Wands is definitely not going to back down from dealing with it or confronting or talking about it or whatever. And she is just going to put it out there. Okay. And I think that's a good, I mean, there's a little caution here with the moon and the Nine of Wands, but I think we have to kind of fall back on that Queen as the first card that came out, and really just say, the tendencies to shrink and pull back when we are unsure is going to be there. But the Queen of Wands is always going to push, even if she doesn't have. Sorry, my cat's coughing. Even if she doesn't have all the answers or an entirely secure knowing of what's going to happen. Okay, she's willing to take risks and jump off cliffs, and she's willing to put herself out there in hopes of the 10 of Cups. I mean, the 10 of Cups is the goal, the happiness, the joy in a love reading. This is the union. Now, some of you may be in established relationships already, which are loving and healthy and good. And there may be some type of a goal that the two of you are trying to achieve together. And this is going to be a really good time to confront the issues of like, well, why haven't we really achieved that goal yet? And what's going on? And really tap into each other's roles and responsibilities. For those of you who might be single, the 10 of Cups would be the relationship that you want to have. And there is some stuff in between that needs to be dealt with. But ultimately, when we fall back on the Queen of Wands, she is okay with the mystery. She is okay with the unknown. She is even okay with failure, as long as she knows that that path is going to lead her towards something great. And I think there is this fire building within you, pile number 3, that's like, and what I really like about this Venus retrograde, we start off in Pisces season when the sun is still in Pisces, but in the next few weeks, the sun will enter into Aries. And so the second half of this will be in Aries. And I think we're picking up more on the Aryan qualities because this is kind of an Aries card here. And I think this is when our soul really starts to speak and our soul's ambitions become our primary focus. And so this energy here of caution and skepticism and restraint and, protection and filtering things out and being really selective about what comes in and what goes out. I mean, this can be applied in a positive way to kind of protect your ambition and kind of protect your desire to achieve your goal. We don't want to put this in the way. Like this is an energy meant to protect our path. We don't want to put this in the middle of our path. You see what I'm saying? Because if we start putting up these roadblocks while we're trying to get to our 10 of Cups, it's going to make it really hard to get to the 10 of Cups when we're doing it to ourselves. It's like a mental booby trap. Like we're setting up all this wall, but it's not going to let us go forward. Well, then how are we helping ourselves with this, But you have that protective spirit and be really selective about who you let into your space. So especially with dating, being really, really selective with who you date, who you talk to, how much time you spend talking to people or vetting people. In a current relationship that's pre-existing, this is going to be the two of you keeping people out and not letting people into your business, not letting people have an opinion or have a say, especially if those opinions are going to kind of throw a wrench in the spokes. Okay? Because whatever happens, that Queen of Wands, she wants to get to where she's going, 100%. She wants to get to the 10 of Cups. She wants to get to that place of overall joy and happiness and satisfaction, especially if she's not feeling that entirely right now. I'm not saying there aren't great things about your life. I'm not saying there aren't million things to be grateful for. And I think she's very good at looking at her life and being like, I'm grateful for all of this and I appreciate all of it. But it's not going to stop her from like continuing to go, because when the sun comes into Aries, it's an exalted sun placement and the sun becomes king in the chart, which is great because that's a very strong sun. But the ambitions of the soul are absolutely going to trump everything else. So the ego doesn't really have a lot of power here. So she's not operating from ego. She's operating from some part of us that says, I know there's more, and I came to this earth to experience more. So as grateful as she is, she understands that the gratitude and the appreciation are the vehicles to get her here, which is why you have to protect your path. Protect it from people that don't have any relevance to where you're going. Okay? So if you're out there dating and you're putting yourself out there and you're trying to make yourself emotionally available, this is you not wasting any time with someone the moment you realize this is not my person. And I think your soul is going to speak very loudly to that, and it's going to make it obvious as to who is and who is not. I'm not saying everything is going to be a success. I'm not saying you're definitely going to meet the love of your life. But if you start putting yourself out there in an aggressive way and you go on a bunch of dates or talk to a bunch of people on an app or something, I think you'll know fairly quickly as to whether or not something's going to work or not. And it's up to you to cut it off sooner rather than later, because it's already mysterious enough, and there's already going to be enough stuff that surfaces with this moon card, right? The moon can often bring up a lot of insecurities, a lot of fear, a lot of childhood wounds and traumas. It brings up so much, and there's a lot of like illusionary stuff that goes on. It's not always the clearest place, and it's the Queen of Wands doesn't mind that. She doesn't mind going into that mysterious place or dealing with a lot of the question marks that life has to offer. I think she's more adventurous than that. So she's not going to hold back. Now, don't get me wrong. There are going to be some people who, like I say, they put up this wall directly in their path. Instead of protecting their path with it, they're going to block themselves. And it's because they're afraid of the mystery. They're afraid of the vulnerability that comes with the mystery. So when dating, or when deepening an existing relationship or going after goals together with someone, that can be an especially vulnerable experience. And so many people may try to shrink back. But again, Venus in Aries, she's going to say, no, you don't. You have to power through, because the 10 of Cups is going to be worth it. The 10 of Cups is going to be... it's going to be what you think it's going to be, maybe even better. So a lot of you pile number 3s, you have to embrace the unknown, and you have to embrace the failures that come with trying something new, with stretching, with going beyond and breaching certain boundaries in your life. And if you want your relationship to really blossom and grow and thrive, or you want a new relationship to come into your life, you are going to have to push against those big question marks. And you're going to have to invite in the mystery and kind of love the mystery, love the magic of the mystery as well. Queen of Wands does. Typically, she does do that. She invites in the mystery because she's like, well, all of life is a mystery anyway. So protecting myself from a mystery makes no sense, because the minute I wake up, my life is a mystery. And I may have some semblance of what's going to happen today with my schedule or whatever, but ultimately, you never know what's going to throw itself in there. So what, right? Now we have the 9 of Swords to finish this off. And they're like, I don't know how powerful that 9 of Swords actually is. It feels superficial. the way it has felt superficial for me in the past couple of months as I do my general readings on YouTube, it's felt very shallow. But it's real. I'm not saying it's not real. It's just the anxiety of, I mean, it's just what happens when we push ourselves. It's, am I good enough? Am I really ready? This is so hard. I'm never going to find anyone. Is my person, my significant other going to like what I'm doing? Are they going to like who I'm becoming? Are they going to be able to change with me? It's like all the questions going down the list, all the questions. There's just so many questions. Well, we know that because of the moon card, but you don't have to drive yourself crazy with the questions. Okay? It's not about, I'm just going to tell you this right now. Like, you're just not going to have the answers, especially in the next couple of weeks. We have a big eclipse coming up. It's going to be intense. It's going to be powerful. It's a big eclipse in Virgo. There's a lot of release that happens because that full moon is going to be conjunct the South Node. And the South Node tends to be one of the more spiritual points in the chart. And when I say spiritual, what I mean is it reminds us that this life here is temporary. And all the experiences here on earth are temporary. And maybe it's not as big of a deal as we're making it out to be. What I'm feeling is like pile number 3, it doesn't need to be so serious. It doesn't need to be so serious. I think it can be more fun and more playful than this. Maybe Venus retrograde kind of has an ominous feeling because it's taking place during an eclipse season. But even still, I feel like the seriousness and the seriousness of thoughts they are going through are not reflective of how unimportant all those thoughts actually are, because I don't think they're that important. The soul is in command right now. There's no question in my mind, especially as we get near the end part of March, as the sun comes into Aries. But I know we have the first couple of weeks where it's still Pisces season, so I'm not saying that this is all, but it just feels like if you can just let your soul be in charge, everything is going to be fine. This is your lower self, your self-preservationist self that wants to keep everything secure and intact, kind of kicking in and wanting control over things. And we all have that tendency, regardless of what our astrology chart looks like. We all have that, but it's not about control right now. Not when the moon is involved, not when the mist. This is what I mean. The people who really succeed during this time and who thrive and whose relationships come together are going to be ones that throw up their hands and say, the universe is in command right now, and all I can do is really respond to things. And I'll live my life and I'll show up and I'll fulfill my duties and I'll do what I know I need to do. But for the most part, when it comes to the redirection of everything, the universe has command. I think that level of faith is going to be very helpful for pile number 3 because it's going to alleviate the stress and the anxiety that comes with the 9 of Swords. I think the 9 of Swords is controllable. Okay, I don't think this 9 of Swords is something that's happening to you. I think it's something that you are creating because of this unknown. And of course, yes, there are going to be a lot of fears and insecurities and childhood wounds and stuff that surface, and you are going to be afraid that things are going to happen again, even though with Pluto now in Aquarius, like, this is not the same story. See, what happened over the past 15 years between 2008 and 2024, what happened was Pluto was in Capricorn, which is a preservation type of sign. It likes to conserve things. It likes to keep things intact. That's what the Saturn rulership does. And there's a lot of desire and demand for control. And I think we all learned a lot of lessons about our control in Capricorn over the past 15 years. We're not in a preservationist time anymore. So we're not here to conserve what happened. So all of this is reflections. It's all empty echoes from what happened in that era. And it's just like we're on a completely different playing field now. We've elevated, we've upgraded, and we're still trying to play with like archaic type of tools. It's like, what are we doing? These thoughts, these worries, they are archaic at this point. They're antique and they're not relevant and they're not helpful and they're not going to help us progress. All right, so we need to put those thoughts in their place and realize how weak and unpowerful, I know it's not a word, but not powerful they actually are, because they are not. And we may think they are, and we may worry that we're creating and manifesting for this Nine of Swords place, but you can have all the Nine of Swords you want, but you're actually really creating from the Queen of Wands soul-driven place. This is where the real things are resonant from. This is from where they're resonating. Okay, from this soul-driven place. So all of this is very surface level. It's all superficial. In your relationship life, whether it succeeds and thrives or dwindles is going to depend on whether or not this Nine of Wands is put to protect your path or put in your path. Because a lot of people, I think, will get stuck here and they'll hit up against this wall and they'll pull back from a lot of things simply because of the past. So the goal here is to not let the past dictate where you're going. Okay? All right, pile number 3. I will leave you with that. Big energy for the retrograde. You guys know I love you. Hope you have an amazing, amazing couple of months, and I will talk to you soon.